All right, I'm glad I did a mic check because my microphone was unplugged. So I am running on absolute E right now. Had almost no sleep, had to take my older daughter to the dentist office, got a couple hours of sleep, just came off of my shift. So I am pressing forward here, running on E. So, anyways, hopefully the microphone's working. Looks like everything's good to go. So, let me introduce myself. This is Heather with Underwater Panther, and welcome back to the Containment series. I do have about 20 different series going on in this channel. So, this is the moral cognition framework, and we are talking about containment within the 12 Astro-Psychological personality types. So, this is where we stop doing personality takes and start doing moral systems engineering. Who carries consequence, who carries contamination, and why polarity collapses when truth has no container. We're doing moral systems engineering. How different archetypal nervous systems carry responsibility when reality gets heavy, when relationships destabilize, and when truth has nowhere safe to land. So we started with identity capture, then polarity, then moral cognition, and now we are talking about containment. So we are layering force direction versus consequence absorption, contamination versus structural duty, internal versus external containment sequencing, and then relational moral gravity mismatches. So I'm not spiraling into archetype aesthetics. I am building out multiple different axes here. How energy moves, where consequence lands with moral weight bearing, how energy moves with the masculine and feminine polarity dynamics inside of the self and in relationships, and how containment distributes pressure. This is systems level thinking. All right. So if you've been following the series, you know we already mapped masculine through feminine polarity as a functional axis under pressure. Not gender, not stereotypes, not performance. That polarity ranking answered one question: how energy moves when the system is stressed. Who initiates structure, who absorbs and integrates impact, who projects boundaries, and who restores cohesion. So I did rank the personality types from the most masculine to the most feminine. I do have that ebook out on my website. Let me pull that up. All right, so let me see. I called it the masculine through the feminine polarity, identity capture, and why some people burn out. So, this book is available for purchase. I rank all of the personality types in here. I have my key cards in here. It is an awesome book. I am currently working on another book for this series, The Containment. All right, so I'm going to take that off. That is available. I just wanted to let you know. All right, so where was I? All right, but here's where the framework evolves and where most polarity conversations completely fail. Because now I'm working with two different gradients and they are not the same axis, even though culture keeps collapsing them into one. So, axis one is masculine through the feminine, which is basically vector. It tells you the direction of force under pressure. Masculine leading systems tend to initiate structure and project boundaries outward. Feminine leading systems tend to integrate, attune, and restore connection inward. That spectrum explains how someone regulates and how polarity functions inside relationships. So I am going to actually pull that up here and give you the quick list. So this is the new book I am currently working on. So the most masculine to the most feminine, we have Capricorn, our ISTJ, Aries, ESTP, Aquarius, INTJ, they are in their own tier. Leo, ESFP, and Sagittarius, ISTP, they're in their own tier. Virgo, ESFJ, Scorpio, ENFP. in their own tier, Gemini, ENTJ in its own tier, and then Taurus, ESTJ, Libra, ENTP, Cancer, ENFJ, and Pisces, INFJ as the most feminine understructure in their own tier. So that is the ranking system, most masculine to the most feminine. I have videos on each of these archetypes. If you want to look back in my moral cognition playlist, it talks about how they hold masculine or feminine containment, how they regulate, what kind of weight bearing, moral weight bearing are they dealing with. So this, what you're looking at here, is going to be in my newest book. And so I do recap all of that. So now we are going to be I am now ranking these in the moral load bearing, which is different than the masculine through the feminine axis. So I'm going to go over that briefly. All right. So axis 2 is moral load bearing, and it answers something else entirely, where consequence lands internally. Who carries moral residue even when no one is watching? Who feels implicated by rot, betrayal, harm, negligence, or collapse? And who feels relief once the moment is over? The story is justified or the group approves. This spectrum is about conscience pressure, not charisma. It's about moral gravity, not masculinity. And once you separate these axes, everything starts making sense, because some archetypes can look extremely masculine in polarity terms while carrying surprisingly light moral residue. And other archetypes can look feminine in polarity terms while carrying crushing internal burden. In other words, polarity tells you who moves first, the masculine and feminine, and moral load tells you who pays last. And most relational burnout happens right at that mismatch. So I'm going to go over the quick ranking of the highest to the lowest moral load bearers. So number 1, we have ISTJ, structural load bearer. I have done 2 videos on that already. And then we have Scorpio, which is this video I am currently working on. Scorpio is the second most moral weight bearing, or the ENFP, conscience and shadow carrier. Number 3, we have Cancer, the ENFJ. Number 4, due to relational burden holder, Virgo. Number 4, ESFJ, integrity accountant. Number 5, Taurus, ESTJ, stability guardian. Number 6, load bearer, Pisces, or the INFJ, the diffuse moral absorber. Then the lower tier, we have number 7, Aries, ESTP, action-oriented responsibility. Number 8, Leo, ESFP, identity-based ethics. Number 9, Libra, ENTP, relational outsourcer. 10, Sagittarius, ISTP, belief-based morality. And you can start seeing that, Sagittarius is considered masculine, but they are on the lower tier of moral weight bearing. So belief-based morality, we have Aquarius, which is top 3 masculine, but number 11 in moral weight bearing. Systemic deflector, and then number 12, Gemini, ENTJ, and moral weight bearing, contextual lightweight. So there is a split. Capricorn is the most masculine and most morally load bearing. But after that, everything diverges. Cancer, or the ESFJ, is very feminine but carries enormous moral weight. Aries is very masculine but carries very little by default. Aquarius, masculine, carries conceptual responsibility, not emotional responsibility. Pisces, feminine, absorbs pain but not consequence unless trained. So masculinity does not equal responsibility. And why this matters for containment. Containment systems fail when high load archetypes are paired with low load archetypes. Responsibility flows downhill, emotional labor replaces structural consequence, and polarity is mistaken for conscience. All right, so that's enough on that. What I was reading from will be my next book I upload on my website. All right, so that's why Capricorn was first. Capricorn is both highly masculine leading and the highest moral load bearer. Like I said, it internalizes consequence structurally. When Capricorn collapses, you see containment failure immediately. And so that brings us to Aries, because Aries is a perfect example of why these two axes aren't the same. Aries ranks high in masculinity, like I said, polarity, because it initiates force, it moves first, it breaks inertia. But Aries or the ESTP does not carry moral residue the way Capricorn or the ISTJ does. Aries carries responsibility in the form of action, then it metabolizes and moves on. Capricorn carries consequence long after the moment passes. Aries is the spark, Capricorn is the scaffolding. So when people confuse masculinity with burden, moral burden, they misread Aries as selfish and Capricorn as controlling, when what they're actually seeing is consequence distribution mismatch. So now we reach the second highest moral load bearer in the entire system, not because they carry structure, but because they carry contamination. So today we're talking about the Scorpio. Let me bring up the key card. Scorpio or the ENFP is not morally implicated through duty. They're implicated through exposure. Capricorn asks, what breaks if I don't hold this? Scorpio asks, what happens if no one faces this? And once Scorpio or the ENFP sees betrayal, coercion, abuse, hidden power, or emotional corruption, it cannot be unseen. Their nervous system treats it like a toxin entering the relational field. Something foreign is present, something unspoken is controlling reality, and their psyche immediately asks, who is going to metabolize this? And if no one steps forward, Scorpio does. That's why Scorpio or the ENFP ranks number 2 in moral load. They do not carry systems, they carry what systems hide. And when truth has no container, when accountability has to be extracted instead of offered, love stops feeling like love for Scorpio. Love becomes a battlefield. So I'm going to be breaking that down as well as what you're staring at. This is foundational. This is considered the ego. You can, if you have your ego, your Mercury, if you have a lot of placements in Scorpio, if you have your Pluto in Scorpio, you will resonate with this energy. So this is foundational. What you're looking at is the ego broken down into 4 sections astro-psychologically. Astrologically, you have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. Psychologically, you have the hero, parent, child, and inferior cognitive functions. There are ages. You start developing your hero between the ages of 1 and 12, and then the inferior, you start developing that at the age of 35 or so. So this is a lifelong psychological developmental process. Just an FYI. So, because Scorpio's entire evolution comes down to one transformation, outer activation must never lead before inner containment. So, that's the whole upgrade. I skipped something. What was I saying? Oh, okay. So, I was talking about the love becomes a battlefield. Not because they enjoy war, but because truth without contamination turns intimacy into combat. So, in this episode, we're doing 2 things at once. We're mapping Scorpio or the ENFP's containment in self, how their inner polarity stack either stabilizes or collapses. And we are mapping containment with others, how partners either help metabolize truth cleanly or accidentally trigger the moral contamination loop where truth becomes weaponized. Because Scorpio's entire evolution comes down to one transformation. Outer activation must never lead before inner containment. That is the whole upgrade. And once you see that, Scorpio stops looking dramatic, paranoid, or controlling. They start looking like what they actually are, a truth carrier trying to survive in fields where truth has no structure. So I hope this is coherent. I hope this is organized well enough. I'm exhausted. I should be sleeping, but I'm going to power through this. So, all right. So, moral weight carrier number 2. So, we're going to be breaking all of this down: containment in self and containment with others. So, here's the part almost no one explains about Scorpios or the ENFPs. Their suffering doesn't come from emotion, it comes from uncontained power. Scorpio does not struggle because they feel deeply. They struggle because they perceive deeply and then have nowhere to put what they see. So Capricorn internalizes consequences, Scorpio internalizes contamination. So Scorpio does not carry responsibility the way Capricorn does. Capricorn carries structure. Scorpio carries truth. That is a crucial distinction. Scorpio does not ask, what breaks if I don't hold this? They ask, what happens if no one faces this? That is the difference. So Scorpio becomes morally implicated not through duty but through exposure. Think about the millennial generation. Think about the activated millennial people that you know, the investigators, the journalists. Candace Owens is a huge one. Ian Carroll is a huge one. Think about the millennials that are hardcore out there exposing truth. That is Scorpio energy. Generationally speaking, it's a good way to see that. So once Scorpio sees something, betrayal, abuse, power misuse, emotional corruption, or coercion, it cannot be unseen. That's where their moral load begins. They don't carry systems, they carry what systems hide. Once Scorpio or the NFP witnesses betrayal or hidden power, their nervous system treats it like a toxin. Something foreign has entered the field, and their psyche immediately asks, who is going to metabolize this or expose this? All right, so let's start with extroverted intuition hero, Mars, and Pluto, breaking that down. So that is the Scorpio pattern scanner and threat radar. Any hero in Scorpio is not playful brainstorming. It is predatory pattern recognition. This function scans motives, inconsistencies, power flows, emotional leverage, and loyalty fractures. It connects dots fast and instinctively, not intellectually, but semantically. They feel when something is off. So it's very intuitive. Pluto overlays NE with depth psychology. I need to get comfy. Oh gosh, I always do that to myself. All right, so Pluto overlays NE with depth psychology. NE sees possibilities. So extroverted intuition, you can think of it like a buckshot, multiple different opportunities, multiple different options. Introverted intuition is like a sniper rifle. They're one path, one direction, one goal. And so extroverted intuition, they're really good at seeing multiple futures, for example, multiple options, whatever the case may be. Pluto filters those options or possibilities for danger. Mars gives urgencies. Mars is very fiery, so it gives them a very urgent type of feeling. So Scorpio doesn't casually notice patterns. They lock onto them. This is why they often read rooms instantly, sense betrayal before evidence exists, feel danger before it becomes visible, and detects emotional manipulation early. So, how this creates moral load. Once any hero detects corruption, Scorpio feels personally responsible to surface it. They don't think that is unfortunate. They think someone has to confront this. This is exposure based conscience. They carry knowledge weight. So, Pluto, the primary planetary driver, represents power, truth, death, and rebirth. Pluto makes Scorpio incapable of superficial relationships. They require honesty, accountability, emotional depth, and power transparency. They do not tolerate hidden agendas, emotional games, or exploitation masked as care. I lost my spot. Okay, so Pluto forces them into cycles of number 1, trust, number 2, discovery, number 3, confrontation, number 4, loss, and number 5, transformation, over and over. This is why Scorpio becomes psychologically deep early in life. They are forged through betrayal. Mars is the action engine. Mars gives Scorpio their confrontational edge. When activated, they stop being agreeable, they become direct, they move towards conflict instead of away from it. This is lower masculine expression, not structural containment. Explosive discharge. They push truth outward. So people think any hero, they misread it as being paranoid, dramatic, imagining things, and too intense. But in reality, Scorpios are running unconscious systems diagnostics. They're noticing what others avoid. So this is their outer feminine, the extroverted intuition, Pluto and Mars, tagged on with extroverted thinking, child, Earth, and Venus. I'll get into that later, but this is a part of their outer feminine. So Scorpios, let me pull this up real quick. Did I exited it out? Give me one moment. Okay, so where I keep forgetting where Scorpio falls. Number 2, load bearer, masculinity. I think it's number 6. I don't know why I keep forgetting. All right, number 7, excuse me. So Scorpios fall on number 7 through the masculine through the feminine. So they are considered outwardly feminine and inwardly masculine. So we are starting with introvert or extroverted intuition. I can't stand it when it does that. All right, so extroverted intuition is their outer feminine. So that represent in Pluto and Mars. So that's pattern perception, threat detection, emotional x-ray, and action impulse inside awareness. This is the famous Scorpio or ENFP intensity. You can normally see it in their eyes or feel it. You can just feel this. I always say Scorpios are like a dormant volcano. So NE opens possibilities. Pluto filters for power, rot, and hidden motives. Mars adds movement and urgency inside perception itself. So perception is already charged, and this is why Scorpios are the odd man out of the water signs. They are extremely fiery, very fiery. So they don't just notice things, they feel compelled towards them. Perception is already charged. So you've got extroverted intuition, perception charged with Mars. This creates instant room reads, pre-verbal danger sensing, fast loyalty detection, and emotional leverage awareness. Or it can be seen as aggression as well. Mars lives inside perception, which means Scorpio doesn't wait to think before acting. They're very movement oriented. They feel momentum and awareness. This is why they confront, not because they're angry, because perception itself already carries force. Mic drop. All right, so now we're going to move on to introverted feeling parent. Core moral engine. This is their inner masculine. Outwardly, they are feminine. You sense their femininity first, and then you start tapping into their inner masculine. Introverted feeling is their inner masculine. We have introverted feeling and Uranus here. Represents sovereignty, internal boundaries, moral autonomy. I belong to myself. This is Scorpio's quiet spine, not loud, not dominant, not performative. This is the part that decides what is allowed, what is not negotiable, when access is revoked. When healthy, they're calm, and have self-contained values. When wounded, sudden exits, emotional severance, scorched earth withdrawals, door slams, burning the bridge. Think Uranus. Disruptive. This is not control, this is self-ownership. And this is also where their internal absolutism problems are. Scorpio doesn't arrive at moral judgment casually. So this is where their black and white thinking comes from, as well as Mars. I would certainly say Mars, Pluto, and then FI parent for sure. Uranus. It's just like there's no gray areas. It's yes or no. All right, so FI parent in Scorpio forms internal absolutes. This is their conscience. This is not soft empathy. This is moral law. FI parent says this crossed a line. This violates integrity. This is not okay. Once FI parent locks, it is non-negotiable. So they do not negotiate internally. They do not debate it. They lock it. This is where people misunderstand Scorpio the most. They think Scorpio is dramatic, but what's actually happening is a private verdict has already been reached. So here's the key. Scorpio does not moralize publicly first. They moralize internally. The decision happens quietly. Externally, it looks sudden. Internally, it has been building for months. This is why Scorpio appears unpredictable. They are not. They simply don't announce moral thresholds. This is why they seem to flip. They didn't flip, they finalized. Pluto makes this absolute. Pluto does not tolerate moral gray zones. Pluto turns integrity into survival. So once Scorpio's FI parent declares something's corrupt, the psyche shifts into purification mode. And this is where containment either happens or war begins. How FI parent carries moral weight. So FI parent does not diffuse guilt, it internalizes it. Scorpio feels responsible for stopping harm, confronting truth, protecting the vulnerable, and exposing rot. Even when it costs them relationships, even when it costs them safety. This is moral burden. So misread, people think FI parent is judgmental, controlling, and vengeful. In reality, they're enforcing internal integrity when external systems fail. So Uranus is the disruption vector. Uranus adds unpredictability, sudden exits, abrupt boundary shifts, and shocking truth drops. This is why Scorpio can leave without warning once FI parent is done. The bridge collapses instantly. So now we're going to move on to extroverted thinking child, the reactive justice system. So we tend to loop between our hero and child cognitive functions first. We tend to cognitively develop these two functions first. You can see the plus sign. That means that we have more mental energy to use these cognitive functions. And so we tend to loop between our hero and child. That's extroversion for Scorpio. The FI parent and SI inferior do take more cognitive energy to use. So normally we're looping between the positive functions. So TE child is Scorpio's emergency switch. Normally they are warm, relational, and exploratory. But when FI parent is violated, TE child activates. Suddenly you get receipts, timelines, logical breakdowns, courtroom energy, judge, jury, and executioner, and precision attacks. This is their surgical moves. This is not mature executive TE. It's child TE with Mars, which means it comes out sharp, not diplomatic. This is where Scorpio earns the reputation for being cutting, ruthless, and verbally lethal. Because TE child does not soften truth, it delivers it. So the moral load behavior, this is Scorpios acting out moral weight. They don't regulate internally like Capricorn, they externalize. They force confrontation. They redistribute burden. If I'm carrying this, now you are too. That's refusal to be morally isolated. So this is their outer masculine, TE with Venus and Earth. So that represents execution, advocacy. They're also known as the advocate, value enforcement, relationship consequence, and material anchoring. This is where truth enters the relational field. TE organizes action. Venus determines worth, loyalty, and attachment. Earth stabilizes or withdraws resources. So outer masculine isn't raw attack. It is, here are the facts. Here's what this costs. Here's what changes now. Here's what access you lose. This is Scorpio's relational consequence engine. This is where boundaries become real, relationships get restructured, and truth gains impact. So the central law, we have outer masculine with TE, Venus, and Earth, which must only activate after the inner masculine of FI and Uranus, and the inner feminine, introverted sensing, SI, inferior with Moon have stabilized. Otherwise, this happens. So you're wanting to self-integrate your inner masculine, your FI parent, and your inner SI moon. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So you want to work on containment. You have to contain your inner feminine before your outer masculine. Any hero and TE child go freaking ape schnit. So the moral contamination loop. So if you don't do that, this is what happens. Number 1, any Pluto Mars detects corruption. Number 2, SI Moon activates betrayal memory. Number 3, FI Uranus hardens into absolutism. Number 4, TE Venus Earth moves immediately. Truth gets deployed before the nervous system is regulated. The result, truth becomes weaponized, intimacy becomes interrogation, loyalty becomes leverage, love becomes a battlefield, because action outran containment. So what healthy integration looks like. Give me one moment here. Okay, so yeah, after this, I'm going to get into SI, inferior, and Moon. All right, I lost my spot. Okay, so where was I? All right, so what healthy integration looks like. Integrated Scorpio does this instead. Step 1, SI Moon first. You say, I am safe right now. This is present, not past. Step 2, FI Uranus next. I know who I am and what I allow. Step 3, any Pluto Mars observes without obligation. I see it, but I don't have to confront yet. Step 4, TE Venus Earth acts selectively. Only if truth must enter form, boundaries must become real, values must be enforced. Then action is clean, no emotional coercion, no scorched earth, no relational warfare, just consequence. So why this matters for self-containment. Scorpio's power is not confrontation. Their power is restraint. They already see everything. They already feel everything. They already know when something is wrong. The mastery is learning. Not every truth needs immediate Mars. Not every betrayal needs instant TE. Not every emotional surge requires relational consequence. Containment is choosing timing. That is the evolution. All right, so the outer feminine loop with any Mars, Pluto, TE child. So this is the dangerous loop. So the NE and the TE outer feminine loop. Like I said, you normally loop between the hero and the child. So this is the dangerous loop. This is where Scorpio becomes relationally explosive. Here's how it works step by step. Stage 1, any detects corruption. They sense inconsistency, hidden motives, emotional leverage, and loyalty fractures. Real or not real, perceived or not, it's they can. Unintegrated Scorpios can be extremely paranoid about loyalty. So they feel it in their body first. Stage 2, FI silently decides. Internally, this isn't okay. No announcement, no warning, just internal moral locking. Stage 3, pressure builds. They try to stay warm, they try to stay relational, they give chances, but the contamination stays inside. Stage 4, Mars activates. Now urgency enters. They stop being flexible, they stop being gentle, they feel morally alone. Stage 5, T child fires. Receipts, logic, exposure, precision, confrontation. Truth becomes a weapon, not because they want dominance, but because they refuse isolation. This is Scorpio forcing co-implication. If I'm holding this, now you're holding it too. So that is where they do the moral redistribution. And but it is done through intensity, so it feels like attack. Stage 6, Pluto scorches the field. If accountability still doesn't arrive, they burn bridges, they collapse timelines, they exit dramatically, not emotionally, existentially, because Pluto does not tolerate unresolved corruption. Now we're going to get into SI inferior, introverted sensing inferior. This is where Scorpio holds pain, not cleanly, but fragmented, emotionally charged. They remember betrayals, humiliations, broken trust, and abandonment, not as timelines, as bodily memory. This makes Scorpio extremely sensitive to being replaced, being minimized, being gaslit, and being discarded. SI inferior is where they become reactive. Small present triggers awaken old violations. Then intensity spikes. So the misread, people think Scorpio can't let go, but in reality, their nervous system stores moral injury semantically. This is their inner feminine. SI with the moon and fall represents emotional memory, attachment imprint, nervous system storage, and safety calibration. This is where Scorpio feels life, not intellectually, but semantically. This is where betrayal is stored, abandonment is remembered, and loyalty becomes embodied. When integrated, they're in the present moment and grounded. When distorted, trigger spirals, replacement, terror, and emotional flashbacks. This is where Scorpio becomes reactive if uncontained. Inner masculine collapse. So we're dealing with FI, Uranus, SI inferior, and moon imprints. Scorpio's inner masculine is fragile, not weak, uncontained. FI parent carries absolute values. SI inferior carries betrayal, memory in the body. Uranus introduces sudden detachment and shock exits. So when Scorpio feels unsafe, they don't stabilize inward, they fracture. Emotionally, they withdraw suddenly, cut access, detach without warning, rewrite history, and disappear. Because Uranus says if this field is corrupt, leave immediately. SI inferior adds trauma recall. So present situations awaken past betrayals. This is why Scorpio can look disproportionate. They're reacting to layers of unresolved moral injury. So love becomes a battlefield. This is the core tragedy of Scorpio relationships. They don't enter love casually. They enter it as sacred psychological contract. They assume honesty, loyalty, mutual exposure, and power transparency. So when betrayal happens, even subtle or perceived only betrayal, they don't experience heartbreak. They experience moral injury. Love becomes a war zone because truth is being denied, power is being hidden, and Scorpio refuses to pretend everything is fine. They don't fight for control, they fight for reality. But when containment is missing, truth turns into a weapon, and intimacy becomes combat. All right, so I'm actually going to pull from another note. This goes a lot more in depth. I need a drink break. All right, so I might repeat myself a little bit, but I'm done editing for the night. All right, so breaking this down, expanding on it a little bit more, and then I'm going to go into the cognitive functions a little bit more. Hopefully I can get this all done today. It's probably going to be another hour. So when truth becomes a weapon and love becomes a battlefield, Scorpio, like I said, does not enter relationships lightly. They enter them with their whole nervous system. This archetype is built to feel deeply, perceive subtly, and move powerfully toward truth. Their consciousness is wired for emotional intelligence, pattern detection, and relational depth. But because they carry one of the highest moral loads in the entire system, intimacy does not feel like leisure to them. It feels like responsibility. Not responsibility in the Capricorn sense, structure, continuity, and stewardship, but responsibility for exposure, for naming what others avoid, for confronting what is hidden, for standing inside emotional truth even when it destabilizes everything. Capricorn carries consequence, Scorpio carries contamination. Once Scorpio sees something, betrayal, coercion, emotional corruption, and power misuse, it cannot be unseen. The nervous system registers it as a moral event. Something has crossed a line. Something sacred has been violated. And from that moment forward, they feel internally obligated to respond because their conscience will not allow silence. This is their moral weight. That's where it begins. So the internal architecture that creates the battlefield. So Scorpio lives inside a powerful polarity stack, which I just went over. At their core sits Fi and Uranus, inner masculine sovereignty. This is a part of them that holds quiet values, non-negotiable integrity, an internal sense of rightness that does not depend on group approval. When healthy, this creates self contained boundaries and moral independence. They know who they are even when no one agrees. Beneath that lives SI, introverted sensing, and the moon, their inner feminine regulation. This is their emotional body, their nervous system memory, their capacity to feel safe in the present moment. This layer stores past betrayal semantically. It remembers abandonment not as stories, but as sensations. Tight throat, heavy chest, sudden heat. When this layer is unregulated, present reality becomes fused with past injury. Outside of that sits any Pluto and Mars, outer feminine perception fused with outer masculine activation. Any opens perception, Pluto adds depth, danger awareness, psychological X ray vision. Mars supplies urgency and force. This is where Scorpio reads the room instantly. Senses shifts in loyalty before words are exchanged, detects manipulation before evidence exists, feels emotional power currents moving beneath surface conversations. But this same stack also creates volatility because any Pluto Mars does not wait. They move and react and pushes truth outward. And finally, there is Venus, Earth, and extroverted thinking, or TE, the relational action layer. Venus wants connection, bonding, and shared values. Earth wants grounding, reality, and tangible proof. TE wants to organize facts and impose order and build cases. When this layer activates prematurely, Scorpio stops being magnetic and becomes pro-sexual. I need another drink. This is where love becomes strategy. Truth becomes ammunition and relationship becomes battlefield. So, how containment fails the emotional sequence no one sees. Scorpio does not explode randomly. Their containment failure unfolds in a precise psychological order. First comes perception. They feel something is off, a subtle betrayal, a shift in tone, a power imbalance. This arrives through any and Pluto as a semantic signal, not a thought. Their body knows before their mind does. If inner containment were present, this would be the moment they ground. Breathe and regulate SI and the moon. Return to Fi and Uranus sovereignty. Clarify values privately. But when containment is missing, the nervous system spikes. Old wounds activate. Past betrayals bleed into present experience. Time collapses. The threat feels immediate and existential. Emotional safety disappears. Now, FI parent locks. This happens silently. Oh, wait, I just skipped a. So now FI parent locks. An internal moral verdict forms. This crossed a line. This happens silently. Externally, they may still appear calm. Internally, the door has closed. They are no longer exploring possibility. They are defending integrity. This is where absolutism enters. Not ideological absolutism, but moral absolutism. Right versus wrong. Black versus white. Safe versus unsafe, loyal versus betrayer. There is no longer nuance because FI is protecting something sacred. At this point, Scorpio becomes morally alone. They feel internally responsible for addressing what has surfaced. They do not believe anyone else will handle it. They do not trust the system to self correct. So any Pluto and Mars activates. Urgency replaces reflection. They begin rehearsing conversations, scanning for more evidence, emotional loading scenarios. The intensity. But because SI and Moon was skipped, there is no grounding. And because FI and Uranus was bypassed, there is no sovereign choice. So Mars fires from threat, not strategy, not wisdom, discharge. So then TE child enters. Receipts appear, timelines get built, logical dismantling begins. So this is Scorpio externalizing moral weight. All right, so I'm going to go over the masculine and feminine collapse inside. So here's the critical piece. Outer masculine Mars is activating before inner masculine FI Uranus. Outer feminine any Pluto is perceiving before inner feminine SI Moon is regulated. This inversion is everything. They act before they stabilize. They confront before they ground. They expose before they choose. This is why truth becomes weaponized, because it is moving through uncontained channels. So, what Scorpio must learn for integration? They must learn that not every truth needs immediate confrontation. They must learn that intensity does not equal effectiveness. They must learn to return first to FI and Uranus, quiet sovereignty, values, and internal boundaries. They must learn to soothe SI and Moon, nervous system safety, present moment grounding. Only after that does any Pluto perception become wisdom. Only after that does Mars become strategic. And TE becomes clean advocacy instead of prosecution. Outer masculine must wait for inner containment. That is the transformation. All right, so let me see what else. All right, so I want to go a little bit more over Venus and Earth. So love isn't passive. Love equals consequence. Love equals access. Love equals what resources stay or leave. Affection is not abstract. It is logistical. It shows up as time, loyalty, availability, material support, sexual access, and emotional labor. So when Scorpio feels violated, they don't just feel sad. They reorganize reality. They move Venus and Earth. They change the terrain. This creates the battlefield dynamic because Pluto and Mars activates first. Venus and Earth enforces afterwards, which produces this internal sequence. Number 1, something feels wrong. Number 2, threat is detective. Number 3, emotional intensity spikes. Number 4, moral line is crossed internally. And number 5, reality is restructured relationally. Think TE. To the outside world, it looks sudden. To Scorpio, it feels overdue. So, why Scorpios don't just talk it out? Most people process conflict through reassurance, conversation, compromise, and mutual soothing. Scorpios cannot because their system does not seek emotional comfort. FI. They don't need emotional comfort. It seeks moral coherence. They don't need you to feel bad. They need you to be real. And if you aren't real, then love becomes the pressure chamber where truth must emerge. Love is a truth extraction field. Here's the part people misunderstand. Scorpio does not weaponize love intentionally. They turn love into a battlefield because it is the only place power is mutual. Friendships can be avoided, work can be compartmentalized, family can be distant, but love removes exits. Are you panicking yet? So love removes exits. Scorpio unconsciously uses intimacy to force co-implication. If I feel this alone, I will die inside. So now you have to feel it too. Nervous system survival. And Venus and Earth makes it real. Once Pluto and Mars has activated, Venus Earth does not soothe. It enforces. TE. It's more of an enforcer. This looks like withdrawal of affection, sudden boundaries, access revocation, logistical separation, and value reallocation. People think they are punitive when they are just recalibrating reality to match internal truth. Love becomes the terrain. Why this feels like war to their partner? Because most partners experience love as connection and safety. Scorpio experiences love as truth and consequences. So when conflict happens, the partner feels emotionally attacked. Scorpio feels morally exposed. The partner wants reassurance and the Scorpio wants accountability. Partner wants harmony and Scorpio wants reality. Different operating systems. The shadow form, when unintegrated, this becomes loyalty testing, shit testing, emotional escalation, the intensity, truth delivered with impact instead of timing. So they're going to start hiding information from you and then using them as truth bombs later. Relational leverage, intensity used to force honesty, sexual or emotional withdrawal as control. That is their feminine that's their feminine weapons, you can say. It happens when Pluto and Mars leads before SI moon is regulated. Action outruns containment. So the real issue, they don't feel safe being soft. This is the hidden truth. Scorpio only becomes militant in love when they feel morally alone. Their openness has been exploited. Truth had to be extracted instead of offered. Vulnerability was met with evasion. They do not fight because they enjoy power. They fight because softness became unsafe. What healed Scorpio love looks like. When integrated, Pluto and Mars observes without obligation. Venus, Earth waits for inner containment. FI Uranus holds sovereignty. And SI Moon regulates emotion. Then love becomes transparent, steady, loyal, playful, deeply intimate, and fiercely protective. Not a battlefield, just depth. So Scorpio doesn't turn love into war. They turn love into a battlefield only when truth has nowhere else to land. They don't fear intimacy. They fear intimacy without accountability. And when love becomes unsafe, they don't collapse. They mobilize. So why Scorpios get called controlling? They're not trying to control people. They try to control corruption. But because they regulate through confrontation instead of structure, it comes out relationally. They push, they probe, they escalate, they force conversations, not for power, but for truth. This is lower masculine expression. Pressure instead of containment, intensity instead of structure. What they actually need. Scorpios, they do not need soothing. They need early honesty, explicit boundaries, transparent power dynamics, accountability without extraction, partners who self correct, environments where truth doesn't require warfare. When those things exist, they relax instantly. They become playful, magnetic, visionary, deeply loving and loyal, and wildly creative because they are no longer carrying contamination alone. All right. So let me see where else I want to take this. Do I want to get into this? All right. So let's talk more about Scorpio repair protocol after rupture. Restoring integrity without re-entering the war. Where am I at? An hour? Almost. All right, so repair begins in the body, not the story. Before meaning, regulate. Walk, breathe slowly, use cold water on wrists, move physically, sit in silence. SI and Moon must calm before Pluto and Mars can tell the truth. If the body is not safe, perception becomes distorted. Then return to FI sovereignty. Ask privately, what value was violated? What boundary is required now? Is this repairable or terminal? Not what they did, what must be honored inside of you. This restores inner masculine. This is where power comes back home. Next, separate truth from discharge. Write two lists: objective facts and emotional impact. Do not mix them. Truth is not the same as pain. This single step prevents weaponized honesty. Then own your part in the escalation. Not blame, ownership. Where did you skip grounding? Where did you act from threat? Where did you force instead of choose? This is adulthood. After that, decide access level. Not reconciliation versus revenge. Access, full repair, limited contact, structural boundary, permanent exit. You don't punish, you adjust proximity. When communicating, remove co-implication. Say this violated, this changes, this is what I need going forward. Not you made me. Truth without emotional force is containment. Finally, integrate instead of scar. Return to your body, return to your life, return to creation. Do not build identity around betrayal. Scorpio becomes dangerous when they fuse with injury. They become luminous when they metabolize it. So the core upgrade, the old pattern is feel, activate, destroy. The integrated pattern is feel, ground, clarify, choose, and act. Same intensity, different order. Scorpio does not need less fire. They need inner containment before ignition. When they learn that truth stops becoming a weapon and starts becoming transformation. All right, so now how Scorpio must contain themselves. This is the integration path. Scorpio must learn, number one, not every truth needs immediate confrontation. Timing matters. Number two, intensity is not effectiveness. Pressure does not equal transformation. Number three, TE child must slow down. Receipts don't heal nervous systems. Number four, SI inferior needs somatic regulation, body work, grounding, safety, not spiraling. Number five, FI parent needs boundaries before explosions. Name discomfort early, don't wait until Pluto detonates. And most importantly, stop redistributing moral pain through relationships. Not everyone can hold what Scorpio sees. Choose carefully. Okay, so they need containment inside themselves before perception turns into action. All right, so the missing piece, sequencing containment before engagement. They don't struggle because they feel too much. They struggle because activation outruns grounding. So their system can go from perceiving, mobilizing, enforcing, then feeling. Instead of perceiving, grounding, clarifying, choosing, and then acting. That one skip step, grounding before mobilization, is everything. Okay. All right, so I have a little bit more to help with containment. I think these are crucial. I don't know if y'all are hearing this from anyone else, so I just kind of wanted to hammer on self-containment. All right, so real self-containment, not spiritual bypass and not suppression. So here's what actually works for Scorpios. Number 1, delay Mars by 24 hours minimum. Not silence, delay. Mars in NE creates urgency narratives. This must be addressed now. If I don't act, I'm complicit. That's false. Truth does not expire in 24 hours. Containment equals letting perception cool before action. This alone prevents 60% of scorched earth outcomes. Number 2, run FI before TE. So right now, many Scorpios go from seeing betrayal, activating TE, and confronting. Integrated version, see betrayal, consult FI, decide boundary, then TE. That means asking internally, what value was violated? What boundary is actually required? Is this repairable or terminal? TE becomes surgical instead of explosive. Number 3, give SI Moon a body channel. Your SI inferior holds moral injury semantically. So containment must be physical. Walking, shaking, stretching, cold water, breathing, and grounding touch. Not journaling, not talking, not thinking. Body first. If the body isn't regulated, Pluto and Mars will get hijacked every time. So containment with others without absorbing Scorpio's moral load. Scorpio must stop doing this unconsciously. If I feel it, you must feel it. That's the moral contamination loop. Instead, replace co-implication with boundary clarity. Say this crossed my values, this changes access, this requires repair, not now you suffer with me. Truth does not require emotional force. That is the upgrade. Stop extracting honesty. Scorpio often tries to pull truth out of people. Healthy containment says if someone won't offer truth voluntarily, that itself is information. You don't need to interrogate. You just adjust access. That's Venus and Earth used cleanly. How Scorpio must hold polarity internally. Here's your corrected stack. So, when it's fully integrated. Inner masculine, we have FI and Uranus, sovereignty, quiet values, and non reactive boundaries. This is where decisions live, not in confrontation. Inner feminine, we have SI and Moon, safety, nervous system, and present grounding. This is where activation dissolves. Without this, everything becomes war. Outer feminine, we have NE, Pluto, and Mars, pattern recognition, depth awareness, and intensity sensing. This is observational, not executive. It detects, it does not act. That distinction is critical. Outer masculine with Venus, Earth, and extroverted thinking, or TE, action, advocacy, and reality enforcement. This moves only after inner containment is complete, not before. The golden rule, outer masculine never leads, ever. If Venus and TE fires before FI and SI settle, Scorpio becomes destructive. If FI and SI stabilize first, Scorpio becomes transformative. Same power, different order. What healthy Scorpio containment looks like. They feel deeply without flooding others. They see corruption without compulsively confronting. They hold boundaries without punishment. They tell truth without impact addiction. They leave without burning bridges. They love without testing loyalty. They protect without controlling. They stop using intensity to regulate relationships. They use structure. That's adulthood for Scorpio. So, Scorpio doesn't need less intensity. They need sequence. They don't need softer truth. They need slower activation. They don't need to stop seeing rot. They need to stop becoming the furnace that burns it away. Because once inner containment exists, they do not turn love into a battlefield. They turn love into sanctuary with teeth. And I think this will be, let's see how much else we got. All right, so I do want to leave this off with the cross watchers. Some tips for the cross watchers watching for their Scorpio. So, how to love Scorpio without absorbing their moral load. I think I did mention this in the prior video, but I wanted to leave it off here. So, you love Scorpio by telling the truth early, naming power dynamics, owning mistakes without defensiveness, honoring boundaries without punishment, staying present during intensity, not outsourcing accountability to them, and holding this line: I will stand with you, but I will not carry this for you. That sentence saves relationships. All right, so I think that's actually it, because I think I've mentioned all this in the prior video. Yeah, I went over quite a bit. Okay. So Scorpio does not seek power, they seek truth with consequence. They don't fear intimacy, they fear intimacy without accountability. And once they see corruption, they will carry it until someone else is willing to stand with them. All right, so that is the conclusion of my second Scorpio or ENFP containment through moral load bearing and polarity. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not sure that I can say anyone else has created a video like this. If they have, let me know. I'd absolutely love to dive in. It's taken me 10 years to get here. Anyways, like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. I do have a 500-page book on Scorpio, the foundational energy of Scorpio. I call it my big master astro-psychological ebook, an in-depth Astro-Psychological Analysis ebook or whatever. I'll put the link in the description box below. It's 500 pages. It is certainly the most in-depth Scorpio book you will ever find. I do mention a lot of that in that book. And you can check out, I've got like 30 books on my website at this point. So yeah, feel free to check all of that out, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.